What? No.
There. That's where it starts.
That was horrifying. Why would you do that?
I am a devil.
Yes.
I like to scare David.
No duh. Then again, I was scaring you yesterday.
It's actually, so during while we were recording Mr. Hop's Playhouse and David's in his creepy furry bunny suit, it got late in the night, and because I'm not accustomed to being up terribly late because I have to wake up at 6:45 for work, I am like, it's like 1 and I'm about to fall asleep, and he comes over to me in his bunny costume while I'm about to fall asleep on the couch, and he's like, "Are you okay, honey?" And he's petting my hand and like being comforting in the fucking creepy bunny costume. And then there's Gwen, who's like looking and like this is so adorably creepy.
That bunny costume is terrifying. It really is.
Yeah.
Like, Gwen did a great job making it look really scary, so.
When I was little, I used to have a fear of costume characters. Like, I would not go up to those guys at Disneyland. I was like, nope. So, I'm fine now, but, like, there's times when you were, like, staring at me and I'm like, oh boy, I can kind of feel that fear a little bit. It's not, again, it's like a, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a nostalgic fear, or, like, yeah, I'm not afraid of them anymore, but at the same time, there's like
there's something deep and buried in there, and I get that. And I was aware, that was in the back of my head when I realized that as I, was coming over to check on you, make sure you're okay, and be like, hey, Kaela, if you're sleepy, it's okay, but you have to clear the set because you're sleeping on the couch that we're using in the next shot. But I was like, hey, you okay? And I'm doing this completely aware that I've got this giant, horrifying mascot head on, and just like, yeah, this is, I wonder if I could... if this is counterintuitive. At the very least, it did get you up, and then you you meandered upstairs and went to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting shoot. Hey, for anyone who's just joining us, welcome to Undercooked Analysis, and keep an eye out. This Friday, Mr. Hop's Playhouse, based on a video game that I don't know much about, that's apparently a big indie hit with all the kids who like the horror. Is coming out. The musical parody of it is coming out from Random Encounters, and both me and Kaela are in it. I play Mr. Hop, and you play a disturbed parent?
Yes.
Yes.
I play a disturbed mother, so.
Yes. And that should be fun. But we're not here to talk about Mr. Hop's Playhouse.
No.
Thankfully.
Well, we got other guests involved. We got Abysmii and Papreeka joining us.
What up?
And then also we got a peanut gallery as well. Sade's in the peanut gallery, kind of listening in.
Sade has been busily snacking on circus peanuts this whole time.
Yes.
It's a circus peanut gallery.
And so we told her that she has to mute herself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So,
Sade is welcome to chime in at any point.
Amanda, you're listening in.
Yes,
Sade is, that is true.
Sade is a manager listening in and kind of just enjoying the show right now.
Yeah, so Sade is here in spirit. Like, Sade is astral projecting himself. So, all right. So did you all get the link, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So we are reading a Prass story, or a Prasokour story.
Prass has submitted a story for us to read. It's apparently part 1, which I'm kind of curious about, but thank you, Prass, for sending us this. And
he told me also, my gosh, I am blanking. I'm sorry. To promote his couple things for him, if we're going to read this.
Okay. Do we do that now, or do we do after?
We can do it at the end. But
let's do it at the end.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to promote that at the end.
Yeah.
So I always like a good Prass story, so I'm always down for
good
this.
Prass stories are good. I'm a little out of it. Like I said, we were up till, I think, I was up till 3:30 last night.
I think we're all a little sleepy right now, honestly.
Welcome to Undersleep. Undersleep.
Underslept.
Undercovers now.
That sounds sexy.
Ooh. That's the After Dark version of this podcast. Available only on Patreon, except not actually. The choicest of drags, if you will.
Patrons, if you want a sexy version of Undercooked Analysis.
If you want a semi-nude calendar.
Pay $20 a minute. Sexy singles. Your
The only-
area.
The only problem is this can't be a sexy episode of Undercooked Analysis because Alan isn't here.
Yeah,
True.
and he's the sexiest one of all of us. Let's be honest here.
Well, I mean, Alan is the one person who I think can unironically use the adverb or adjective handsomely
Yes.
as a descriptor for himself. I said handsomely.
Oh my god.
It doesn't even seem it's not. It'll just go. Yep.
It's true.
Yep.
I mean, it's true. It's like, Alan, you handsome son of a bitch.
Can this be a voluptuous episode instead then?
Sure.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
could be a voluptuous episode.
Is that the subtitle? The voluptuous episode.
This is a very voluptuous episode of Undercooked Analysis.
A sultry episode.
Voluptuoraptors.
Yes. That's the
Voluptuoraptors. There it is.
Welcome to the Voluptuoraptors podcast.
I don't know. This makes me wonder how many sort of like Prass tropes will be in this story. Nothing against Prass. It's just that, he has a subject matter he knows really well in general, and his stories tend to factor around that. So I'll be curious what he's done. I know nothing about the
Animals.
story.
Let's find out.
Animals by Pink Floyd.
Yes. Well, it's specifically animals
And Pink Floyd.
and Pink Floyd, but also animals. But we might be able to find dinosaurs in here. But if not, I'm assuming more.
What? A dinosaur in a Prass story?
Blasphemy!
No.
So
Prasokour.
this one's called The Twins,
So the Twins Part 1.
Part 1. If we want to read more,
We'll see how this goes.
yeah.
Yeah.
He only sent us Part 1, so.
That's fine. We'll see if he wants to send us more after we go through and thoroughly henpeck this story. Anyway, because you know how it is with us.
Sade, pick the order for us. Make it random. I'm gonna let our manager decide who will.
Manager, what are we doing on air today?
Manager Senpai.
Okay. Paprika
Whoa.
first, then Kaela,
Should
and
have kept my
Abby,
mouth shut.
and then David last.
So
Now I'm gone.
okay.
Whoa.
It was Paprika, Kaela, Abby, David. Yes?
Paprika,
Yes.
Kaela, Abby, David.
There we go. That works. Okay.
Okay.
That was like an earthquake.
Dear, dear Jeffrey. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right, Kayla.
Best line ever. It's 10:49 p.m., though in a few seconds it'll be 11:49 p.m. Okay.
Crossing time zones.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Behind me, two kids are playing a game of war. Good God.
What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
We're gonna be here for 1,000 years.
Sorry.
It's okay. That's
And
not
one
a
of
bad
them
reference.
bangs on his tray every time he loses a round. In a row adjacent to ours, an older woman is snoring like an angry boar.
David, you're going to be the sounds for us?
No, did you hear that?
That was Gracie.
Yeah.
Oh, that
I
was
heard it.
Gracie.
that was perfect
I thought that
timing.
was David.
No,
that was Gracie.
That was weirdly perfect
Good
timing.
girl.
Good girl. Wow. The flight attendant still hasn't brought out the drink cart. Unlike you, I can't bring myself to fall asleep. And I'd rather the plane crash into a mountain than sit through Jurassic World falling.
There it is.
There
I've
it
been
is.
there.
There it is.
I feel like I should take a drink anytime there's Fallen Kingdom again. So now's a good time as any to do something I should have done before we left.
I love you. This you know. After this is all done, I hope that you get some understanding of just how much I love you. What I'm about to do fills me with fear and pain, but I do it without hesitation in the hopes that you will get better. I don't know that you will, but we've exhausted every possible option. If there is even the slightest chance that you can be relieved of the incredible agony that you've had to endure for over 2 years, then it is worth any chance and any risk.
I've never
Very
met
serious.
It's very serious. Mm-hmm. I've never met someone who had more compassion and more generosity than you. You have given me more than I deserve without promise of a return. I don't know how you found the strength to forgive your brother, but I was literally in awe when you did. I saw you do something that I could never do. Now that hindsight is starting to kick in, I wish I had spent more time at the animal shelter with you. I wish that I had taken you to South Africa, like you'd always talked about. I wish that I'd gotten a chance to see the Lord of the Rings with you. Yes, the extended editions. There's a chance I may still yet do all those things with you, but I do not trust to hope. I know better.
I'm afraid to start off this explanation by revealing that I lied to you, because this will set a poor tone for the rest of this. But I did. We are not going to visit my parents in Arietta, or at least that's not why I wanted to go. They are doing well enough, and barring any unforeseen strangeness, though I'm not sure that I can, they are not about to die anytime soon. I have a different reason for wanting to bring you to my hometown, a reason I hope will bear fruit. There may be a cure for your cancer here, an end to the pain. Well, is it cancer? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
the
assumed
beginning
as much.
and the beginning of a new life together. Cancer may be like an analogy.
Could be.
Or there may be more pain in store for both of us. As I said, there's a chance. That's a chance I'm willing to take.
So,
I can't imagine that's an analogy. I think it probably just is literally cancer.
To cure your cancer here, but we don't really know what he's talking about.
yeah,
though.
the tricky part.
This is a little. This is epistolary already since
So-
it's a letter.
By the way, whenever this has been one thing that I've always been kind of bothered by whenever someone mentions cancer in a story. And this is, I mean, not bothers me, but I feel people should know better. Is the idea when people say, I have cancer, and it's like, well, what kind? Usually when people are dying of cancer...
Yeah, they say, I have lymphoma or I have pancreatic cancer or something, yeah?
Or it's like, I have... just, you usually know the specific one. You don't just say, well, I have cancer. Okay,
Well-
you gotta be more specific. I feel like in real life, people are more specific than that.
Sure,
Well, yeah,
but
there's
this
a lot
is...
of... Yeah.
This is implying that there's no obvious treatment. Like breast cancer has a pretty high treatment rate these days. If this dude's flying over multiple time zones to probably get some exotic cure, we can infer that it's a cancer that is very advanced, or maybe it's somewhat novel,
But even
and there isn't treatment.
even then, okay, this is dark, but my grandpa died of a rare form of tissue cancer. But he still, when we talked about it, it's like of your tissue cancer, or...
But this is also being written to
Yeah.
someone who is actually suffering from it, and it's maybe they've already
True.
had a chance to discuss this. They don't need to. If they're writing to that
They don't-
person, that person
yeah.
already knows what kind of cancer they have.
Good
so.
point. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Right,
my.
now this is a flowery emotional letter between two people. This isn't this isn't a description of
I
the
know
first
sleep.
cancer I got.
I have a certain type of cancer.
I just think, well, because...
This entire story is the length of one no sleep title.
Well, there's...
So far.
There was that part in God's Not Dead where the one girl's dying of cancer, and she's like, I have cancer. I'm like, what kind? You're not saying what kind. You're just, I have cancer. Okay? Even the doctor's like, you have cancer.
Look, I found out
Yeah.
that I have a cancer. Too many television
Television
waves.
waves.
But anyway,
Millimeter wave technology.
Is it my turn?
yeah, it's you.
I haven't told you much about the town of Arietta because there isn't much to tell you, and that's because there isn't much to the town itself. When you live in a city like Portland,
Hey.
we were just talking about this.
Choice drags.
It sounds like a terrible place. I never want to go there.
Somewhere Sade is just fuming in the background too. Like both of us, like, you think?
So here's the plan. Make Sade talk.
Do everything you can.
Portland sounds like a dirty city.
How dare you? You think of when you live in a city like Portland, you think of a small town as having about 35,000 people. No, I don't think like that, actually. When I think small town, well, okay.
It depends on where you're from.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
If
but
you're
even,
from like Alabama, small town means something different.
well,
Yeah.
okay, but when I lived in Portland, my mom was from a small town, and it was of 1,000 people. Like, that's when I thought of it as small. There's a lot of fucking small towns around Portland.
You know what? I have a new definition for a small town. If you live somewhere and you're like grocery store, you have this special grocery store that's better, that's like going to Dave and Buster's, and it has all of the special things. You're in a small town.
What?
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. What the hell did you just say?
So if you have one store in town and it's the only place that you can buy I don't know, your favorite gummy bears or that one cake, the only place in the entire this entire city that makes like actually good cake, then you're in a small town.
Okay.
What does it have to do with Dave and Buster's?
It's like where you go to get the stuff you want. So it's like an adventure.
I get what you mean.
David Buster's, where you go to get the stuff you want.
Okay, so
New tagline 2020.
Shut up, David.
I get what Paprika means.
No, I do too. I just really like that idea that would be a tagline for David Buster's.
Where you get everything you need.
You don't get what you want there. You don't get what you need there. You get what you want there.
But when I was young, only about 300 people lived in Arietta. So I think it's safe to say that really is a small town. Yeah, that's really small.
That is pretty small.
Whichever metric you use. Route 10 runs right through the center of town. But apart from that, it is dead set in the absolute middle of nowhere. Where you head north or south, east or west, you'll soon find yourself surrounded by a vast wilderness in the midst of the
Adirondacks.
What are the
Adirondacks?
Okay, I don't.
Mountain.
It's a special type of fish.
Where is this located? Where are the Adirondacks? Or is that it? No,
It's somewhere near Portland.
is it?
No, it says
Adirondacks.
They're in New York.
I didn't. Okay, that's what I was.
We have the internet right at our fingertips, and
Yeah.
The Adirondacks are in New York.
Okay.
State.
Okay.
Not city, state, obviously.
right.
Oh, boy. I know that I've mentioned to you that I've had problems with my parents. Their divorce was particularly stressful for me, especially given that I was only 12. 12 is an awkward time for many, and for me, it meant my first period, the death of my cat, Winston, and an increase in my parents fighting. It was only made worse by the fact that, after fighting, my mother turned her frustrations towards me. She'd shout at me for seemingly no reason, or else command me to do any number of pointless chores. By the time they announced their divorce, I was sick of it all. I hated them with as much disdain as my young heart could feel.
Well,
what a cheerful story.
I know, right?
I think I've read this.
Really?
Uh-oh.
I think. Yeah. Continue. I think I've read this though.
You know, this does reveal. Okay. So we know our narrator is writing to Jeffrey. We now have a sense that our protag is now, or at least is biologically female, or was biologically female. I guess we'll see where this goes. So I ran away from home. It was a very childish thing to do, and so very typical of a kid from the 90s. But I just couldn't think of any other way to get back at them, apart from seriously hurting myself, a point which I hadn't quite made it to.
I've read this. He has sent this to me before because he was asking some writing advice. So. Okay.
Are we going to continue the story then?
Yeah. We can continue it. Let me.
Kayla's got secret.
So just
insider
reveal
info.
the ending to us.
It's
Three of us, plus our manager, haven't read it, so...
Yeah, plus it's...
Look, you can just tell me that Rosebud is the sled, okay?
Our manager still hasn't read it after this
And
video. Just,
if it
saying.
helps,
True.
It's been a while since I've read this.
It's been a while.
Like, I didn't even remember it until it finally got to that one part, because I was like, wait, I remember this.
Adirondacks?
Well, no, I don't. No. Like, the part where he was talking about, like, because I remember there was a point, Prass actually reached out to me. He's like, why would a 12-year-old girl run away from home? And because he's like, I want a good reason. And
because she lives in the Adirondacks.
Help. Send help.
Because her mom.
If you or a loved one are suffering from Adirondacks, you may be liable for compensation.
Okay, so I have read this. It's been a while, but and even then, like any story, it's like, oh, I've read it once, but there might be
whatever. Continue.
So, it's not as if I was planning on actually making it very far from home, just enough to give them both a good fright. I contemplated whether or not to leave them a letter, but I decided against it. The town was so small that it wouldn't take them long to find me once they realized what I had done. And I wanted to make sure I had made a good distance. That was the way they'd have a nice chunk of time to worry. If I was lucky, they might even take some responsibility for it, but I wasn't hopeful.
So...
Has anyone here ever attempted to, like, mock run away from home to make a point to their parents?
No.
This is not a jokey question. This is a serious question.
I did, also because my parents were getting divorced, but I didn't have the balls to go to the next town. I just went down the street.
I remember vaguely getting the balls to run away, and then like immediately losing them when my dad came home from work. That was my entire plan was literally to go out and cross the street and just hang out by the bridge.
I think I've thought about it, but then like I was like I didn't really have a plan after like leaving home and being like,
Oh no, you don't. Like
yeah, because your worldview doesn't know what's beyond.
And that was the idea. It's like, oh, where would I run away to? And that's what was always stopped me. Rather, so
we just watched Inside Out for the first time, and in that movie, the little girl tries to run away to Minnesota on a bus, and the entire time I'm like, "What are you gonna do when you get there? You have no house. What are you doing?"
That little girl had way more balls than I did. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I realized when you're that young, you don't think that far ahead. It's just
her emotions were super borked though. So like
true.
Like
she had no core memories.
Oh no.
Great movie though, by the way. Everyone go watch that.
That's
Inside Out. Movie. Inside Out is great. So that was where were we? Oh yeah, sorry. All right. So
I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Just a few blocks away from my house was Otter Lake. On the eastern side of the lake, there is a trail, the only walking trail out of Arietta. It's not all that well kept because it doesn't get used much at all. If you follow the trail, it leads east for about a half mile or so before you come to a small clearing. There you'll come to the ruins of what used to be called New Dover, what the people in town now call Old Arietta.
I like that.
Yeah.
Is it by New Dover or Old Arietta? I don't quite recall. Bill, it's the same place. Oh, that's right.
Is this the red door or the
blue hipster?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even old New York was once New Amsterdam.
Why they changed it, I can't say.
People just liked it better that way. It's your turn.
Well, ruins might not be the right word for it. That makes it sound more spectacular than it really is. Far from the broken battlements of Eastern European castle or the crumbling stones of a Mayan pyramid, the remnants of old Arietta consist of a few scattered poles sticking straight up out of the ground, the former foundations of small houses made of straw and mud. Other poles lay half buried in the earth, some of them still tied with strands of rope. There are also a few short stone walls made from the rocks collected from the workers digging into the thin soil. Apart from that, there's nothing left.
Huh. I wonder how old these are.
Yeah.
How old is New Dover?
How new is Old Arietta?
Oh.
I don't know. If it's early European colonization, or is it remnants of Native American tribes? I wonder. It's a curious little part of the town's history, one that we covered briefly in the 3rd grade. Puritan rejects from New Hampshire settled the town in 1689, led by a man named Luke Henry. No one knows why they left their first settlement in New Hampshire, or else the reason's never been interesting enough to be worth mentioning. Either way, they planted their flag on the land, which was located at the very edge of a valley at the foot of the Adirondacks. Water collected in the valley and created a festering marshland overgrown with just about every kind of tree you can find in New England. Beech, oak, ash, maple, fir, pine, you name it.
And you did.
I don't like the word festering because it implies that it's kind of nasty, but do you think this is real, or do you think he made this up?
It's hard.
It's hard
to tell.
Could be. And that's shows strong writing. I could totally believe this happening.
Same.
Yeah, me too. That's one thing Prass is very good at, I found, with his writing before, is when it comes to like grounding a thing in reality. I think he does a good job doing that.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting that basis before something fantastical happens.
It's likely a mixture of both. Like some of this is true and some of this is fabricated as far as names or something.
Yeah, no, I dig that. Like having it be a small town in a real setting too helps a lot. Like for couching it in that. I wanted to go there because I was feeling rebellious. I wanted to do everything in my limited power to strike at them in the same way they struck at me every time they fought. People in Arietta don't go to the old village, and they most certainly don't go to the marsh within the valley. If you ask my 3rd grade teacher, she'd tell you that because She'd tell you that the reason the people of Old Arietta left was because of the smell of the swamp, and because the townspeople feared disease. I suppose those things could be true on their own, but that's not why they left. I didn't learn the real reason until I was at a friend's house for her birthday. I was staying the night along with 5 other girls, and her older sister deemed to tell us the real reason why the original settlers left Old Arietta. Why the older folks in town, the principal of the high school, the butcher, the deacon at church, don't like to talk about the part of the town's history, and why people don't take the trail that leads east from Otter Lake.
I am getting Stephen King vibes, but I bet you that Prass is going to do it a lot better than Stephen King.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a Pet Cemetery, but it's going to be better than Pet Cemetery.
It's feeling like that.
Yeah, awesome.
But I have faith in Prass's abilities because he has written very, very good stories in the past.
He sure
I
has.
think I'm maybe too close to the author because I'm not picturing a woman. I keep going, oh, this is a story by a girl.
It is still a little, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, it's a woman.
No, once it was revealed, it hasn't left my mind.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
It was a woman who's looking back at when she was 12, so.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, I get that. I'm just saying I'm not getting that, and I think it's because I know that Prass wrote this and not because of the story. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, good point.
But is the voice different enough yet that you can differentiate it? That's the thing. If you were to divorce that idea, would you still find the...
I don't know. I don't know.
That is a tricky thing. I mean, that's always a tough thing when you know who the writer is.
Right. Well, maybe we can see what happens as we go further. See if we can kind of...
Okay. It was the sleepwalking. A few days after the town was built, men began to get out of bed and walk in their sleep. They'd be caught by their wives or by a light sleeping neighbor before they could get very far. Ben, why are you out of bed? Why are you out sleepwalking? They'd be caught by their wives or by a light sleeping neighbor before they could get very far. But all of them were heading out in the same direction, toward the valley and the marsh. When the men were woken, each one said that they saw the same thing. They all saw the twins.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh, there's the title. There's the title.
The twins, so they said, were a pair of beautiful women who lived deep in the bog in the very
Oh, yeah. Bog women.
That's what...
Well, you know, mud baths are supposed to be good for your skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Them boggy beauties.
Yep. The boggy beauty. I love this.
Not when I'm drinking.
Boggy.
In the very center of the valley by an ancient oak tree, both of the twins had the fairest skin they'd ever seen and drapes of hair as red as autumn leaves, which covered their faces and reached past their waists. They wore no clothes and sang with sweet voices that hummed and rang like glasses of water played by a human finger. Okay.
Cool.
That's cool.
That's a cool
That's a
word.
cool detail.
The twins sang to the men while they slept, calling them by name and compelling them to enter the marsh in the dead of night.
Now I'm just thinking about our brother we're out, though.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while, but dang.
Got that one scene with the sirens.
Yeah. That thing's also dripping with kind of the local color, too. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As would be expected, the Puritan townsfolk feared the worst. Witchcraft. They prayed to God and to Jesus and to the Holy Ghost and to whatever else they thought might guard them against black magic. The pastor blessed every building in town and recited several psalms at the town entrance to ward against dark forces. The townsfolk dreaded to enter the marsh.
To ward against sleeping.
Yes.
Yep.
Everybody
No,
just has to stay awake. And this won't be a problem anymore. Drink your coffee. The townsfolk dreaded to enter the marsh, knowing full well that such a place is dangerous even without the threat of witches. So they put their faith in God to protect them.
Oh, fools.
God can't help you now. This is bog country.
This is bog. No
The
country.
boggy beauties are coming to play in our saloon.
Well, who do
Only
you think
Swamp Grandma has any sway here.
the contrarian thing would be? Like, well, who do you think created those boggy beauties? God.
God.
A Jesus.
Honestly, the sleepwalking men.
They
Why were you sleepwalking out in the middle of the night? Two witches. They're naked and yeah.
two naked witches.
Yeah, human fingers, man. Yeah.
You ever hear the sound a glass of water makes when it's played by a human finger? Bo, what are you talking about?
What the hell is glass?
All of their faith was answered with nightmares to all in town. Every man, woman, and child suffered the same terrible dream that night. The twins came to them, but not as a pair of beautiful women. Instead, the twins rampaged through their dreams of the town as a two-headed black mare, each head with a mane of smoke. The head of the left...
Awesome.
Oh, that's so cool. The head of the left was missing its left eye, and the condition was revert. And the right eye blazed with furious red light like a ruby held aloft at sunset. On the right head, the condition was reversed. They no longer sang in sweet tones. They shouted and shrieked at the sleeping townspeople with voices like knives cutting glass.
Okay, so now I have questions for press because, like, is this recorded somewhere? Is this recorded in individual journals, or did one town, like, scribe person write all this down as everybody's supposed memory? Like,
doesn't matter,
or is
because
this
the teacher told them?
Yeah.
Oh,
this is just
okay.
or the person at the sleepover I think did that too.
Yeah.
Like this is all very like now come here, I'm gonna tell you a story, that kind of thing.
But it's like, isn't it like a little girl?
But it was a 12-year-old's or some slumber party.
Is that what it said in the story?
Yeah.
Originally, yeah. This is our narrator learned about this while she was at a slumber party.
All right, I got you.
And that they were like, oh, you want to know the real reason no one goes out there? Because the twins, the legend of the twins.
Yeah.
Spooky, scary. That explains why there's so many references. This does sound like how someone would tell it dramatically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does have a campfire story sound to it.
I like it. I mean, the two-headed nightmare horse is pretty rad.
A nightmare. Literal nightmare.
The literal nightmare in all her ninefold. Those that woke could hear sounds coming from the marsh, the anguished calls of many woodland beasts, the howling of wolves, the snarling of catamounts, the roaring of bears, and the tortured cries of creatures which no person could name.
This, again, this is Press's skill. This could be based off of a real campfire myth, urban legend from the early colonial days, like Rip Van Winkle era stuff. It just has the same beats and the fantastic imagery. It's really cool. I really
the Witch
like
or
it.
something.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, getting some
really good.
Getting some Irving vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The townsfolk knew then that there was nothing they could do against the power of the twins, so they left. They took what they could, left behind what they couldn't, and set off westward, away from the unholy bog and the witches that dwelt within its festering heart. The town, with the town of New Dover abandoned to the mercy of the swamp, Luke Henry and his followers settled in Newtown, which would become Arietta.
Look, I know we just got here, but the bog's haunted. So
that or we need to stop drinking this bog water.
Honestly,
it's making us
God
all
done told
sleepwalk.
me to leave this bog behind.
I don't feel like this would be like a story though that would be like glazed over, and people in like the 90s or whatever be like hush hush about. This would be something that people would be like, dude, have you heard about this weird fucking history we have? That's why we don't live in that bog area anymore. Not that it's
well, it could be that thing that they explain away with how they like nowadays they think that the Salem witch trials and a lot of the witch craze in that Massachusetts area was caused by ergot.
Yeah.
Like it could be some. I suspect
so ergot's like a mushroom.
It's a fungus or a spore. It grows in rye bread, or it grows among rye, and because rye bread was such a prominent part of like a New England, like Puritan New England diet, they think that some people started suffering hallucinations because of consumption of ergot.
It's also one of my favorite League of Legends champions.
Well, this bog also sounds like a terrible place to for similar reasons, because the water is probably poisoned. Who knows what's growing there?
Yeah, I was going to argue it could be don't drink the water, and this is all hallucinations.
This is all just probably, this could be a later cautionary tale told to people to keep them away from the bog so that they don't transmit diseases.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe it more like if like the like a teacher told them or a mother told them. I don't understand why teachers and mothers would be hush hush about that. Why she would hear? I mean, she could hear from like from a sleepover, but I don't understand why.
Or more like
because the women are prettier than them.
I feel like teachers and other authority figures in the 90s would have been more like, that's just a story. Concentrate on things.
Yeah,
child.
But I feel like that's something like if there's that sort of legend. Like, look at there's other famous legend stories out there. Like, my goodness, because this one also sort of reminds me of why am I blanking?
Describe it.
Town suddenly disappears.
Roanoke?
Yes. Like, it's like a weird sort of like thing that happened in their history. Similar to maybe. Then again, it is. Go ahead.
Or maybe people started to have really bad diarrhea and they just needed to leave.
Well, everyone, New England, man, it's a weird place with weird, spooky stuff happened all throughout its history.
Every person I know that's lived in New England is like, oh no, this place is creepy as hell.
Well, especially in places like the Adirondacks, the huge, very isolationist communities that exist in New England mountain ranges, like it's just a thing. It just comes with the territory for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, think about
totally.
where do those freaking hillbillies live?
I know what you're talking. Appalachia.
Yeah, Appalachia. Like that place is straight up 50 years behind everyone else, and it's in the middle of America, almost. Like it's just that happens.
Really small towns like this one tend to be like whenever I did visit my mom's small town, like it's weirdly kind of 20 years back. Like I visited only a few years ago, and I'm like, why is everybody dressed like the early 2000s? Looked like they looked like something out of MySpace. All the teenagers did. It was kind of weird.
Yeah,
that's surreal. Whose paragraph are we on? I think it's you.
I don't suppose you believe this story.
Oh, is that who's me?
Yeah,
it's Kaela.
I don't suppose you believe the story. I know that I wouldn't if I was in your place. I'm not asking you to believe in anything. Not just yet. We are still some time away from the truth of the matter. You may feel hurt or insulted that I've taken so much time to tell you what amounts to a ghost story. But before I continue, please know that this is not to diminish your pain. What I'm saying and what I am to do will sound insane to you, no doubt. All I can tell you is what happened to me. What I saw.
Push you in bog water.
Yeah, drink the bog water.
Be cleansed by the bog.
What I saw, what I felt. It may have some bearing on you, and if there is any good in the world left for us, then what I'm about to tell you will provide the framework for your cure.
I didn't take much with me when I left home, since I wasn't actually planning on being gone for that long. We were all campers growing up, so I knew what basic supplies to take. A flashlight, some blankets, a pocket knife, some snacks, and a bottle of water, all stuffed into my backpack. I left while my parents were out a meeting with their divorce lawyers, making my way toward Outer Lake, then down the path leading east, and to the remains of old Arietta. It looked just as I described it earlier. The wooden archway marking the entrance of the town. I'm reading it as it says.
What is af?
It's at.
I think it's supposed to be at, but it's an F instead of a T.
Right.
It's a typo.
Yeah.
As fuck the wooden archway.
As fuck the wooden archway. There was a wooden sign with words carved into its surface with a knife. Turn back, for here lie forever the dead and the damned.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hell yeah. That's metal
pleasant.
shit.
A chill ran up my spine, no doubt in part because of the brisk autumn air and the dark clouds hanging overhead. They were light gray and growing darker as the sun behind them moved further to the west. I moved through the center of the town, admiring the rotting wood, pools, and crumbling stone. It was real, all right, which opened my young mind to the possibilities. What else of what I was told was real?
Ooh. A little ways down the path leading out of town, I saw the trees looming over me. Enormous firs, bigger than any tree?
Maybe?
No. I've ever seen. Among their lower ranks of needle-covered branches, dense shrubs and ferns grew in thick layers all over the forest floor. Even from the outside, I could hear the sounds of the marsh. The crickets chirping between long intervals of quiet, and the raucous chorus of spring peepers, who were paradoxically singing in the fall. It was already fairly dark. Standing there, but looking into the woods, I couldn't see past 4 or 5 trees. If it was the forest were several. It was as if. Yeah.
As if.
It should be as if, but it says it was if the forest were several hours ahead to the rest of the world and was already close to midnight. I took my flashlight out of my backpack and switched it on, but its feeble beam of light couldn't penetrate very far into the shadow of the forest. Before I took my first step inside, I called to my mind some words of advice I'd heard at my friend's sleepover. Oh, no, that's Abby.
You will see things in the bog, and you will hear things. They are not real. They are shadows and dreams, and they cannot hurt you. But if you heed them, then harm of some sort will befall you.
La 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 la, I'm not listening.
The bog women can't hurt you. Meanwhile, the bog women.
The twins, the bog twins, the bog beauties. Boggy beauty, sorry, that's Paprika.
The boggy bathing beauties. We did say earlier this was going to be a voluptuous episode of Undercooked Analysis, and I'm definitely saying these naked bog
well, we
women.
didn't know how true those words would be.
I know.
But if they turn into a two-headed horse, can a two-headed horse also be voluptuous?
Look,
Described
yeah.
as voluptuous.
Have you looked at a horse's butt?
Touche. That's a big flank.
I know this was a Prass written story because he says that their hair is the color of autumn. Like you, he has a thing for redheads. He's told me this.
Well, he and I both have the biggest crush on Karen Gillan.
So yeah. Watch.
Our celebrity. We have a shared celebrity crush.
Abby, take a drink if Karen Gillan gets mentioned in this.
I can't drink tonight.
I'm kidding.
Work tomorrow.
I'm kidding.
Those words were from Simon Ainsworth, the only man known to ever have entered the marsh and returned. With the town of New Dover, soon to be called Old Arietta, abandoned to the mercy of the swamp, Luke Henry and his followers settled a new town, which would become Arietta. For 30 years...
He already said all this.
Oh, wait. Did we?
No. No, he already said all this in the story. So.
Yeah, so that's
Oh.
He's kind of repeating himself.
It's helpful, I think, to circle back though.
a little bit.
I can. You know what? I'm gonna go with Paprika. I think that some of this could be like cut out. Like
This is like the third time he's mentioned that this is Old Arietta and New Dover. Like,
Well, we didn't
just move
establish who Luke Henry was before being introduced to Arietta. So this is kind of like
though. Like he already established Luke Henry was the founder of the town.
but after mentioning New Dover and Old Arietta,
Okay,
and then
well, I'm
he
just
got
saying,
into
like, this is like the fourth or like entirely these facts are coming back a number of times.
no, this
I'm
is
just
the
saying
first time that we were told that Luke Henry moved on from whatever to establish Old Arietta, or maybe the second time at most. But
I
it's helpful
think
here.
this is the
Established a
second
new
time. This is the second time we've
Yeah.
been told that Luke Henry left to
Yeah.
establish
We already had
Arietta.
like we started with the protag's childhood, and then we went into the old history, so we went even back farther in time, and now we're actually getting caught up to when Arietta became a thing. I think it actually is helpful to put this in here because it kind of
I think
reestablishes where I am in this timeline.
it could be shortened a little bit, though. I think this sentence could have been easily shortened to, or this doesn't have to be a long paragraph. At least it
Yeah.
could be a quick reference. But I don't. Yeah, it's been said many times. Yes, it was New Dover.
But I mean, let me
At least
let's finish the paragraph.
I'm kind of with Paprika on this one, but
yeah.
no, the story's still good. It's
Yeah.
still really well written, but
But for 30 years, their new village flourished. It never grew very big, but its people were healthy, and the horror of the old town was nothing more than an unhappy memory among the oldest residents. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation.
That's the way it was for 20 years until the town was hit with the devastating epidemic of yellow fever. They tried everything they could, from prayer to leeches to Indian remedies, but nothing could stop them from the spread of the fever.
Never could stop from spreading that peanut butter.
Not actual medicine, though.
No.
No.
Things became more desperate as time went on. When nearly half, well, I guess this is super history, so
Yeah,
whatever.
this is only 20 years after the events of after they abandoned the marsh. Yeah.
Okay. So when nearly half of the town had fallen victim, things became more desperate as time went on when nearly half of the town had fallen victim. It finally reached a point when Simon Ainsworth came up with a mad solution to the problem. Ainsworth was one of the men who had been visited by the twins in his dreams and had been coaxed into entering their realm while he slept. The path they had laid out for him was still there in his memory, no matter how hard he had tried to forget it. Knowing that kind of power they wielded, he set off east towards the deserted remnants of Old Arietta and the cursed land beyond.
I gotta go back in the bog, you guys. We have other really important problems here. Nah, going back to the bog.
Gotta get it on with those beauties. Those boggy beauties.
He just wants to take a healing mud bath.
Mm-hmm.
They know a thing or two about healing mud baths there.
Oh my god.
Maybe a massage too. There's two of them. They probably give massages at the same time.
Kinky. No one knows the full story of what Ainsworth saw in that place, but to everyone's surprise, he came back. When he did, he brought with him a small wooden bowl filled with a special elixir. A wooden bowl. Okay. He had all who were...
He whittled it.
He whittled a bowl.
bowl.
I was at the bog. I was whittling my bowl.
He done conjured it.
He had all who were sick drink from it once, but by the next day, the fever was all but gone. Oh, and by the next... Why did I say but by the...
Because there's a butt coming up.
Yeah, but...
A big butt on a horse.
But gone. But though the plague had ended, the people did not celebrate. First, Simon Ainsworth had said that he had to go back, and this time he wouldn't return. See, he had made a deal with the twins. They gave him the medicine he needed, and in exchange, he promised to live with them by the ancient oak tree in the heart of the valley.
We gotta go back, Kate.
Slave. He became their sex slave.
I was just gonna say.
We gotta go back. We gotta go back.
Simon, yay, finally you can be with your wife and children again. Everything's cool. Yeah, about that, I gotta go back to the bog, and I'm not coming back.
Look, healthcare just ain't that big point in this country, so, it's either that or give it my firstborn.
And, these are twins. Good looking.
Twin. That's all he has to say. But Simon, you've got a wife and kids. He just turns around. Twins.
4 titties.
The last we saw, poor Simon.
4 titties. 2 vaginas.
Red hair everywhere.
Red on top,
they
fire
have
down
red
below.
hair growing on their feet.
Oh my god.
Giant hobbits. Perhaps you're beginning to see the method to my madness, but before you take me for mad, let me at least explain why I believe in all this strongly enough to turn to it for your sake. I didn't feel any immediate difference when I stepped across the threshold of shadow and officially entered the realm of the twins. I guess I half expected the twins to jump out from behind a tree, naked and all. The idea actually made me laugh and how ridiculous it was, but that would be the last time I laughed while in those trees.
Naked surprise!
Wait, they aren't dead. Naked surprise. I had been so absorbed in the mystique of the marsh that I had put my parents out of my mind. But for the first several minutes following the path down into the valley, that sense of titillation, began to wear off.
This is a 12-year-old girl.
This is a 12-year-old. Well, the idea of wandering into a mystical landscape where magical twins that turn into 2-headed horses live.
This is an adult recalling things about being a 12-year-old.
And she uses the word titillation.
This is an adult using the word titillation to describe how she felt when she was 12.
Sure.
But titillation, anyway, began to wear off. And I wondered if they had gotten home yet. Was it just then dawning on them that they'd driven away their only daughter, and that she was now wandering the wilderness all alone at nightfall? It gave me a kind of bitter joy to think of them panicking at my disappearance. I tried to imagine how mortified they might be if they realized where I had gone. I snapped out of my thoughts and back to where I was when I stepped down into a tepid pool of frigid water. Ugh. I aimed my flashlight downwards to get her better.
Tepid or frigid? Because those are both temperatures.
Yeah, wait.
I think he was trying to say...
Stagnant? Are you thinking stagnant?
Maybe he wants it, shallow. Maybe shallow might be...
Could be. I aimed my flashlight towards to get a better look at the spot where I had put my foot. The surface was coated in a film of green algae, and when I pulled my foot out of the water, my sneaker was covered in brown sludge.
Ew.
The shock was so great that my teeth began to chatter. Waving my flashlight around, I tried to see if there was another, drier way forward, but to no avail. I hadn't simply stepped into a standalone puddle. This was the marsh.
Oh, no.
I really, really hope you didn't get that there weren't leeches in there.
I took another step, and my other foot met the icy waters of the swamp, going up past my ankles. Why?
Why would you...
Poor Kay.
Poor Kay.
Oh. When I took a third step, I saw something leap away from my foot and into the muddy water. I didn't get a good look at it, but based on the size, the creature in question had to be a bullfrog. I thought it was strange. Usually the frogs had all gone to sleep for the winter by this point, and I'd have thought it true here, given how cold the water was. But then I remembered more words from Simon Ainsworth.
Okay, why is she going into the bog?
Yeah, why the hell is she... She just said the water was tepid and frigid, and pulled her foot out, and then stuck a little foot in.
Another thing too is she's just doing it to run away. There's no reason to continue on to the marsh.
Right. Maybe we're meant to pick up on that, but we'll have to read to find out, I guess.
Yeah, let's see.
But yeah, I think also, why would she be wearing sneakers if she knew she was going into a marsh?
Well, I'm sure she'd wear shoes going camping.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be like, if she knew she was going into the marsh, like this was her plan all along?
Did she want to get far enough out that her parents wouldn't think to look for her there?
So the phrase was, I snapped out of my thoughts and back where I was when I stepped down into a tepid pool of frigid water. So she kind of wandered into the marsh.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And I know that it says there's no way to go forward, but why does she need to go forward? Isn't it just to scare her parents? I mean, why go further? Why go further?
Unless she's now at this point.
It says, I hadn't stepped into a puddle. Okay, this was the marsh. And so she steps forward into the marsh. Okay.
So by accident. Okay, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, but as to why she's still walking into the marsh.
It might be just aimlessly, like, thinking and walking.
Yeah, but that could have been this could be explained.
Sure. It's that thing where, like...
Her feet are cold, her sneakers are now wet and covered in mud, and the shock was so great that her teeth began to shatter.
Yeah. I think by that point, there needs to be a better reason why she would start wondering.
Unless she's, like, actually kind of turned around at that point. I think that it could be made clearer, because, like... this reminds me of an incident I remember hearing about historically about like an early polar, like North Pole polar research station where someone had, they had a bunker and one of the guides was there by himself for a long period, and they have a guide rope because it's like dark and blizzardy a lot, so I remember very distinctly the line, I was thinking of something or another, and when I put my hand down, I couldn't find the guide rope. It was pitch dark, and I didn't know how far maybe I'd wandered. And then, eventually they used a strategy tactic to find the rope again or find the base using a snow mound as, like, a guide for as far as they could see. And then, but the thing that always sticks with me is, like, to think I could have died out there in the snow, and all because I was daydreaming.
That could be made a little more clearer.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the idea that it's not that unusual for someone to have lost their sense of where they are just because they're in their own head thinking about stuff.
But
so to be seen suddenly, like, and then the next thing I knew, I was, like, ankle deep in this bog, and I realized I had wandered too far.
But that's not what they said. They said I took another step.
But I'm saying that's one way this could be made.
Yeah.
It could be made a little bit more believable.
Yeah.
That's my argument.
Yeah, and then they're like, I try to look around, and it got too dark. But that could be...
Well, let's
like
keep
had
reading.
She wore waterproof boots and then found out that the water was starting to puddle and looked down.
Yeah, we still got 5 pages to go, so let's keep reading.
Yeah, let's just keep reading.
Yeah, like, it's, again, still a good story. I just think this part could be made explained a little more clearer, like, why she would continue.
Yeah. Maybe that'll actually happen, too. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, who read the last paragraph?
The twins.
I took another step, but Icy Waters.
Kaela, the twins.
From...
the one in italics.
The twins see and hear all that goes on in the marsh. The frogs and toads are their eyes and ears. If you see a fat old bullfrog squatting in the mire, staring at you with those side-face eyes of his, that's the twins getting a good look at you.
I scanned the area with my flashlight, looking for any frogs that might be looking my way. I couldn't find any, and couldn't help but feel somewhat foolish, but my fears weren't entirely dissipated. There were still the hundreds of spring peepers calling from every corner of the marsh, and it wasn't very difficult at all to think that at least one of them might be watching me from some dark hole in the ground or in a tree trunk.
I was a good ways into the land of the twins at this point, and given the cold swamp water and the growing darkness, it would have made perfect sense to head back.
Yeah.
It had been at least a couple hours, and I'm sure my parents must have been sufficiently spooked by then. Anyone in their right mind would have done just that, but, well, frankly, I don't think I was in my right mind. The memory is somewhat fuzzy, but I remember a very unusual feeling. It was like a kind of gleeful curiosity, almost like what a child feels while staring at colorfully wrapped presents under a Christmas tree. The shining, brilliantly patterned wrapping paper invites young onlookers to rip into it like a hungry coyote into a dead rabbit. The marsh had a similar effect on me, though I'm still not sure why. Every time I thought about heading back, it was as if a voice, quiet, distant, but nevertheless present, whispered to me, "No, not yet. Just a few more steps. You might see something amazing." There you go.
Okay, but that needs to be that needs to be up higher then. That needs to be up higher.
But then again, most people aren't going to be like us and spend like 5 minutes going.
Well,
that needs to be like right after she took her first step and then kind of looked around.
I know what you're thinking.
Yeah,
why did I keep going?
Yeah.
Well.
Jesus Christ. But
And after I...
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to...
Oh, I was going to read.
Yeah, go ahead. No, all I was just going to say is, basically, I think that's a good reason. That should have been higher. That's all I'm saying. That's just reiterating my point.
And after I took a few more steps, the voice spoke again. Not much further. Just a little more. Just up to that birch tree. All the while, night sank ever further onto the already blackened wilderness, bathing the forest in shadow. My flashlight, which had seemed puny and hapless when I'd first turned it on, now looked positively pathetic, like its useless attempts to penetrate the dark was an insult to the marsh. And I felt the dark closing in. Another huge bullfrog leaped from a small rock sitting in the water as I stepped beside it. I was startled and let go of my flashlight's handle. It fell clumsily into a puddle, its insides filling with dirty water. It flickered a few times and then went out entirely.
Oh no!
Not my flashlight.
Not the flashlight.
That's when I felt the shift from an eerie sense of unease to full-fledged terror. I could see nothing at first and stood still in the mud as I waited for my eyes to adjust. It was a surprisingly quick process, as if everything around me took on a pale blue tint. Beneath the layers of crisscrossing branches, there was neither starlight nor moonlight. I looked beyond me and saw nothing but more marshland, with no recognizable path back to where I'd come from. Only then did I realize the full extent of the situation which I had so stupidly created for myself. I was lost, alone, in the dark, in the middle of the wild.
I want to know what happens.
Yeah, me too.
I know. This is actually... Okay, it does get me interested. I'm like, I really want to know what's going to happen. I really am interested to know.
You got us baited, Mr. Prass.
I heard something that made me hold
So
my
much
breath.
baiting in this bog.
At first I thought it was a loon with a taunting, mournful cry like something between a howl and a whine, but it kept rising up from somewhere far beyond the trees and turned inexplicably into a horrendous, otherworldly, maniacal chortle. It was like the strangeness of something profoundly inhuman attempting to mimic something as fundamentally human as laughter.
Ooh.
I can't know for sure, but it felt like there was more than one, and they called to each other from desperate corners of the marsh. Those terrible cackles rang from miles to the north, then the south. Should be then the south, I think. And then they came from the west, but they were no longer miles away. Now it sounded like they were hiding behind a nearby grove of trees not 200 feet from me. I spun around and caught my foot on something sticking out of the mire. I fell face first into a pile of something rank like a compost heap. When I pulled my dirty face out of it, Pulled my dirty face out of it, I heard the sound again, even closer this time, just to the left. And then I clapped my hands over my ears as it screeched just inches away from my face. I gritted my teeth and shut my eyes, waiting for it to end.
Ooh.
When I no longer...
Stalked.
Oh, yeah. When I no longer heard the muffled sound seeping between my fingers, I slowly released my ears and opened my eyes. Those sounds were so loud and so horrible that the monotonous background of peepers and crickets sounded like silence in comparison. There was nothing there but the marsh and me.
Until I heard another sound, a very different sound. From just behind the trees in front of me, I heard something like the rush of a great wind exploding upwards into the sky, and the flapping of uncountable numbers of wings. It was as if 100 million birds had all taken off instantly, and not that it is an exaggerated number. And no, that is not an exaggerated number. That is precisely how many it felt like. I covered my head as if the unseen swarm was about to swoop over me at any second, but it never did. It just kept rising upward through the trees until it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Then it truly was silent. Even the frogs and the insects had ceased their calls. I don't know if I had ever experienced such a powerful silence before, or ever since. Even the indefinable ring that you can find in your ears when sitting still in a noiseless room was gone. Oh my god. Despite how awful the sounds sound, I had heard... Despite how awful the sounds I had heard were. This was all... My God, my mouth is not doing well.
Well, he uses tongue twisty language.
Yeah. Despite how awful the sounds I had heard were, this was somehow worse. As if the entire universe was now holding its breath in anticipation of something unthinkably terrifying. Jesus Christ, Pras.
Cool.
Damn. Okay, I know I basically like fumbled over those words, but damn, that's.
Are we sure that Pras doesn't have a Lovecraft in his background? Like some real connection.
Maybe. And just like that, there it was, the absolute worst possible sound that could have echoed through those trees. I was not expecting it at any point up until then, but when I did hear it, my heart filled with dread that was colder than the water. My hands and feet were half submerged within the thick, oozing mud as I attempted to pull them out and get to my feet. I floundered miserably like a panicked salamander. All the while, the sound grew louder. Unlike the others, it didn't come from all around. It was coming from directly in front of me and moving along a steady course that was bringing it closer and closer with each passing second. It was the furious, relentless pounding of hooves against the waterlogged earth. It's the nightmares. Oh, shit.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that. That's actually everything is surprisingly, just because there's no visuals, it's all based on sound and like other senses. It does have a pretty good sense of building dread and mounting tension going on here, and I really
the language paints a picture.
It does.
Yes.
When I was finally able to get myself on my hands and knees, still figgy pudding. Is there so much figgy pudding in this bog? Is this where they put the figgy pudding? God,
Is figgy pudding just bog water?
Yes.
It's corn grass.
Can confirm.
it's Boggy Beauty's figgy pudding.
That sounds very unappealing.
It does. Still fighting against the mud, crawling up my extremities. Yuck. I looked out in front of me. My chest was heaving up and down, each frantic breath exhaling a petrified cloud of hot mist. Through a pair of diverging trees about 50 feet ahead, there was a patch of pure black, untouched by the blue hue of the rest of the surrounding marsh. The galloping hooves were coming from there. As I kneeled, totally frozen in place, I stared at that black spot. I had never seen darkness like that before, as it was a shade too dark for human eyes to register. But it didn't stay that way for too much longer. As the hooves grew even louder, something began to appear through the blackness.
Wait. As I finally was able to get myself... Oh, okay. Never mind. I was wondering when she was kneeling. I'm like, where did she...
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah,
because when I was finally able to get myself on my hands and knees,
Oh, she fell?
Yeah, she
fell into that compost heap or whatever.
Yeah, she tripped on something sticking out of the mire. That was the line.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. As the hooves grew even louder, something began to appear through the blackness. 2 small specks of pale red light, which grew brighter and more vivid as they came even closer. Fuck!
Hark!
Hark!
Okay, I knew there was no chance I'd be able to escape what was coming. Even if I wasn't half submerged in quicksand, I'd never be able to outrun them. Like the defenseless child that I was, I flung myself backwards into the mud, tucking my face against my chest and covering my head with my arms. I sobbed through the sound. Though the sound was drowned out by the charging creature approaching, and hot tears wound their way down my cheeks. There was no time for regret. I was wholly consumed by the fact that this was the end. I was going to die.
I heard an obscene scream that cut my ears like broken glass, and felt the displacement of air as something large leaped over me. Isn't it leapt?
It could be leaped. It's
Yeah, I
fine
think it's
way.
either.
Okay.
Leapt is more like the old way you do it.
Okay. I could even somehow feel the shadow of the thing pass over my face. Then the shifting air swirled around me and rose up into the ceiling of winding limbs and branches. Wind rushed through the dried leaves, still clinging to their diminishing hosts. The desiccated flesh of the leaves scratched against each other, creating a prominent rustling, which rang through the forest. In the throes of terrified imagination, I could swear I heard the leaves whispering underneath the dry rustle.
No, not yet. Not ready.
Ready Player One.
This one's too young. She hasn't reached sexual maturity. She must come back.
Cannot be a bog woman. Her hair isn't even past her shoulders. In terms of seconds and minutes, that can be arranged. In terms of seconds and minutes, I don't know how long it took for me to uncurl from my fetal position and realize that I was alone again, and that the vociferous peepers and crickets had returned. I looked around me and saw no sign of the creature I knew had been coming. Indeed, there was no sign that any of the strange things I had seen, heard, or felt had happened. The grip of the mud against my legs slacked, and I was able to scramble pitifully to my feet, my clothes soaked with brown water and caked in clumps of dripping sludge. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, which caused me to yelp like a frightened dog and leap nearly 5 feet in the air. This something in question was my flashlight, which flickered to life and shone on a patch of ground behind me. In the beam of pale white light, I saw a trail of my footprints leading backwards away from where I stood. I was so filled with relief, I didn't care that they were most definitely not there the last time I looked. I backtracked through the marsh as quickly as I could and made it to the path that led through the woods and out of the valley.
Exeunt flashback, sort of.
Yeah.
Nice. In a sort of mindless stupor, I wandered through Old Arietta and back down to the trail to Otter Lake. My legs carried me half-consciously toward home, as if there was any other place I could go to. Before I made it, a pair of brilliant white headlights filled my field of vision. I shielded my face against a sudden flood of bright light, as my eyes were still accustomed to the night. When I could finally see again, I realized that my mom had seized my hand and was pulling me toward the car, all the while berating me for just about every reason she could find. It never occurred to them that I had tried to run away. No doubt, in part because they found me on my way home. They had no idea why I had gone, and in that moment I couldn't remember myself. I was just content to be away from that place. Aw, your runaway attempt didn't even succeed. Bummer.
No. I want to hear her, have hot chocolate after that or something. Yeah,
really
right? So, there you have it. That's the whole story of what happened to me. I know it's not much to ask that you believe me, especially given that I've already admitted to lying to you about one matter. I can't make you believe. All I can do is tell you what happened to me. The rest is up to you. But if you can at least give me this much credit, that even if I'm wrong, I'm not disingenuous. These things happened. Whether or not they work or a pair of evil witches, whether or not they are the work of a pair of evil witches, I saw things and heard things and felt things I've never been able to explain otherwise. If you can give me that much, then here is your hope.
I'm going to sell you on this hoodoo, voodoo.
Well, I don't, honestly, if I were whoever, assuming this is her cancer husband, I'm not sure. Her friend with cancer, her friend with nondescript cancer. Okay. I don't think I would be very convinced. I mean, something happened to you that scared the crap out of you when you were a kid out in the middle of nowhere, and now you think you're going to give me a bowl of soup out of wood and everything's going to be okay?
Well, this is also, as stated previously, done out of desperation. They feel like they have no other recourse, so they're literally reaching as far back to their childhood and alleged supernatural stuff happening.
And it's not like not like, hey, if this what I experienced seemed so real to me, then maybe the other story about the cure from the bog could work too.
Right.
So that's just maybe illustrating, I may not know if the cure exists, but I believe all this other stuff happened to me, therefore can make that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that you're supposed to do that. I, as that person, would not be convinced. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, same. 3 others have tried to enter the marsh and seek the aid of the twins over the last few hundred years. None of them have returned. I don't know why they granted Simon Ainsworth's request. Maybe it's because it was unselfish. One of the others that went to the twins was a man who had been spurned by the woman he wanted to marry. He was hoping the twins would bewitch her. The other man wanted to buy back his property after it had been seized by the bank. No one knows the reasons of the third man, but I don't think it's a stretch to believe that he also had the selfish intent. It's a selfish to want the property that was seized by your bank? All right.
If you don't pay, maybe.
No, that's true.
Well,
I just want it back.
What if you lost your job?
Yeah.
And you can't pay, and the bank takes your
There's circumstances.
They're boggy bog women witches. They don't deal with capitalism. They only care about matters of health and life and love.
I lost my house in a foreclosure. What's a foreclosure? Well, you see, when you have a deed of trust and you need to get it ratified by
Selfish
the...
intent.
If this is the case, then maybe the twins will take pity on us. Maybe they have the power to rid you of this particular rare, virulent, painful form of cancer. Ooh, jeez. Given the fact that we have reached the absolute end of rope, isn't it worth at least trying? Damn.
Yeah.
There it is.
I have this vision of like someone going to the twins and them just looking, going like, you must let the free market run its course.
No, it actually makes me...
Oh my gosh, they just give you really bad financial advice. It's just...
Invest in penny stocks.
Don't worry about Bitcoin.
Bury your gold in the backyard.
What's foreclosure?
I know it is, but not because I trust the twins. Simon Ainsworth warned against that much. Should you make it to the oak, to where the twins make their home, do not trust to their goodwill. They have none. They are jealous and fickle, and their plans are not a man's plans. Well, no, they're women's. They'd be a woman's plans.
Exactly.
Their woman's plans is to...
They can't be trusted because they're women. God, get it right, Abysmii.
Get it right or pay the price.
They had to leave the whole town because women were there. I mean, come on.
Ew! Cooties in the marsh, run away!
I'm still laughing at the fact.
What specifically, Kaela? This is non-visual medium. But Kaela is dying. And it's amazing. And I'm trying to figure out what it was that was said that got to you.
Well, good thing it's David's turn.
Yeah. The twins is asking about a foreclosure.
Oh, okay.
It was really funny. What's a foreclosure?
Okay, I'm trying to stop.
No, it's okay. Take a
David
breather.
has his own reasons.
That's really good.
Oh my God.
Take a breather. It's good. Or keep laughing. It's okay. You're allowed. I have my own reasons for believing that the twins will cure you. Over the
I'm sorry.
Your laughter's infectious. I'm sorry. It's great. No, it's good. Over the last several weeks, I have been having strange, frightening dreams about foreclosures. Sometimes they're just like normal dreams, except for a few odd details. While the dream plays out, I can hear a heart beating in the background or see red lights shining from somewhere far off. Others are much more literal. I find myself back in the marsh, hearing this and seeing the same things I saw then. The most recent ones have gone a step farther. I'm in the marsh, but I'm not alone. I'm with a man, though he's hidden in shadow and I can't see his face. But his voice seems familiar somehow, as if I had heard it ages ago and then forgotten. He speaks to me.
You are ready, he says. Ready for what? I ask. They saw you, he says. But you were not ready, so they touched you.
Appropriately!
That's a little inappropriate, yeah.
Now here's my question.
12-year-old.
This is all in a letter format, right?
Yeah.
Why would you rate this as a letter format?
This
Wait,
part.
is it a letter? I feel like he's talking to the person. Is it a letter?
Yeah, this is
Hold on.
Well, it's opened with Dear Jeffrey.
Yeah, this is a
Oh,
letter.
yeah, that's a good point. That was my first paragraph was Dear Jeffrey.
Yeah.
I didn't need to
Don't
ask
remember.
who. What does that mean? I'm using a tight and nasally voice because I want to. They can see you and reach out to you no matter how far you travel. What do they want? You. Why? Their plans are not a man's plans.
He's going to be the third twin. Calling it now.
But they wouldn't be twins, then they'd be triplets.
Well, okay, if we can have the three Norns and all
Okay,
of that,
you
we
can
can have
have
three.
3 sets of twins with triplets.
That's when I knew this was Simon Ainsworth. There's some part of him, whether it's a ghost, a visage, that is still trapped in the marsh, under the ownership of the twins. He had been sent to relay this message to me.
Interesting.
Cool.
He
He continued.
Oh no, it's Abby's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He continued. Your husband's illness. They will take it, but you must return now that you are ready. What do I have to do? Get naked and grow your hair out.
Learn about foreclosures, teach us the real estate business.
They're very interested.
Corner the
They want
stock
to get
market.
into the short sell market.
The housing bubble never collapsed here.
Come to the marsh, to the oak, they are waiting. What if I refuse? Your husband's, oh, it is her husband. Pain will know no end and no limit.
Oh, we just learned something.
Yeesh. We're holding your husband hostage, effectively, both with both because of the cancer and because of.
Oh, so they're not thinking the bog witches are gonna cure him. It's they're holding him hostage.
No.
Well, the cure will come, but
there's no other way to
Right, but
save.
if you refuse, then the pain, your husband's pain will know no end. They're holding him hostage.
Sort of. It's like, hey, you were here once before, so here's the. That would be insidious, though, if somehow the Jeffrey's cancer was the result of this ancient childhood encounter.
Damn it!
That'd be brutal.
You can make that argument, is all I'm saying.
Well, we're only in part one. For all we know, the big reveal is like, by the way, we gave your husband cancer.
Part one.
Oh, that's true. This is part one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it.
Damn.
The four of us got to do another episode. Five of us, if Sade is still here lurking in the shadows. Yes. Do it.
Oh.
Sade's typing meow.
Meow.
Who put a cat in this story?
Sade in the shadows.
Sade put a cat in this.
I remember
story.
I did that a while ago because I couldn't really join in, but I wanted to listen in. So I
remember this. Yeah, you were there in spirit as well, so it's all good. So I have some thoughts, but I'll wait. We've only got I think
2 paragraphs.
2 paragraphs left.
Yeah.
Every night he comes to me. I ask him the same questions, and he gives the same answers. There is no doubt in my mind what is to happen next. As I type these words, we are on our way to Arietta. We'll check in with with my mother, and then I must go. I have no reason to think that I will return. Not if Ainsworth is my guide. I can only expect that my fate...
Wait, if Ainsworth is any guide.
Not Ainsworth is any guide, sorry. I can only expect that my fate will be something like his, and that is not a comforting thought. Just thinking about it makes me feel like I swallowed a pound of manure filled with maggots and worms.
Ooh.
But I can't stand to see you in pain anymore. I will trade my freedom for yours. If not gladly, then resolutely. Every moment I see you fighting, every moment I see you fighting the torture, it's like feeling my own strength wither away. As far as I can tell, there is only 2 paths left for us. One leads only to more suffering for both of us, and both its course and its destination are certain. But there is another path, a darker one. I will assuredly never return from it, but it may lead to your salvation. Either way, there is no happy ending for me. But you have a chance, however slim. I'm willing to take it, and once you find this note, then I can only pray that you'll forgive me for all of this. Yes, this 10-page dossier that I'm giving you.
If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I've met whatever the fate the twins have in store for me. Hopefully this means your cancer will soon be gone. If I dared presume it was gone already. Goodbye, Jeffrey. My love for you is too great to be beaten back by the fear of the unknown and the undreamed. And if you simply concluded that I am completely and utterly insane, I can't begrudge you that. But at least you know that for whatever delusions I may suffer, my love for you is stronger than them. I want you to be happy and to live the life you've always wanted. Share it with whomever makes you happiest. Forever yours, Cecilia Brown.
Wow.
This is fucking good.
I dig this.
Where's the second one?
Not written yet.
Where's the second one?
The second one hasn't come to us yet.
We don't have the second one.
Hey, Prass.
Boo.
Prass, I know you're listening, you son of a bitch. Get on that shit right now. Although I will say, I think this story could benefit from some parts being, maybe trimmed down and tucked in a little bit.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think that the story, the language, it's solid, and I actually like descriptive. I like it. I like it quite a bit.
I also like a lot of it is we don't know if Arietta is real or if these legends are real, but he makes it sound like they're real.
I don't think the legends are, but I definitely got it. But that's the power of the suspension of disbelief. I could believe Arietta is real.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And to make it even more interesting, this whole thing could be just from her mental state. We don't know if,
Sure.
If she actually saw a spooky ghost horse in the bog.
Exactly. So
She could be an unreliable narrator. We have no idea.
That's true.
there, and that's the good part about this story too. I like.
But it doesn't matter because it's written so interestingly, and so there's so much great imagery that who cares? It's just very well done.
Yeah. There almost doesn't have to be a part 2 because it's kind of like this is left with that ambiguous kind of ending.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
True.
I'm not just sure how a part 2 would be done. But this is labeled The Twins Part 1, and so therefore I'm like, so Prass has the intention to write a second part.
It would be weird to call it The Twins and not have 2 parts. I can see.
Oh.
Yeah.
My one thing is I don't like the idea, like, she's writing a letter. You wouldn't write, like, I said, he said.
The specifically the conversation bits.
You could just say, he has come to me, he has told me this.
I've had dreams where I've met Simon
the second
Ainsworth.
bit, I wouldn't expect the next bit to be a letter.
Well, we have no idea.
Well, why would you assume it'd be a letter?
No, I'm
Because
not...
the first one is?
So?
I'm not saying this second one's a letter. I'm just saying the conversation shouldn't be in that letter. I think
the parts where it's 2 characters having a conversation is kind of awkward to write it when you think of someone writing a letter.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with you there. But I mean, like, that's not about that's a mild criticism of the first part, or critique of the first part. I feel like the second part could easily be, well, who knows? I don't want to even project any idea of what a second part would be for this one. I'll leave that to Prass, because it seems like he's got a good handle on this ghost story, this legend, this sort of desperate. I'm going to have to rely on some weird real estate advice from these twins, and also that I can also cure cancer. So
it's like someone going to investigate Sleepy Hollow. It's just really, really cool. Really, I'm forgetting the term here, but that genre of literature, and I really, really like that.
The story is like a genesis of a whole world. Mm-hmm. This whole town because he's not just introducing the twins. He's introducing this the Mormon-like guy, the town starter, and then he's got the Simon Ainsworth guy, and those are 2 different people, right?
Yeah,
it feels very Stephen King.
A lore, not just one monster of the week. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's layers. There's imagery as well, because you have the nightmares, you have the boggy ladies, you have the creatures of the bog other than them. The sleep, you have even little details like the sleepwalking and the
Simon Ainsworth himself is now a monster in his own right. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
true.
Like the twins have a Renfield. It's Ainsworth.
Some Dagon vibes, and it just feels like a place where things happen.
Yeah, it's like a force. It's a force of nature.
It does feel a bit Innsmouthy.
Something old and hard to understand.
Yeah,
which is I like those kind of stories.
Oh, Innsmouth. That's what I meant.
Yeah, Innsmouth.
I rate this a 2 boggy beauties.
2 out of 2 boggy beauties.
2 out of 2 boggy beauties.
Oh.
I give this quiet title action out of a foreclosure.
Okay, I'm not gonna. That did make me laugh really hard. That was
good. That was well played.
Yeah, I know. What's
she's packing it.
No, I'll stop. Go ahead.
No. Your laughter is amazing and beautiful.
What's your?
Oh, I will give this I will give this a knapsack full of saltine crackers and a thermos of tomato soup out of everything you need to run away from home for 15 minutes.
Yay.
For 100 points, please. I will give this a really interesting plane ride where he wrote this letter. Or she wrote this letter.
Really long plane ride.
Yeah.
And Sade is typing.
Ooh.
Sade should be talking.
Well, Sade might be... I gave it 4 titties.
4 titties and 2 vaginas.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Prass, for submitting The Twins, Part 1. We eagerly await Part 2.
Hell yeah.
Before I'm gonna give him a plug because he asked me to.
That's right.
Yeah, he's right now trying to create a traveling educational program specifically on paleontology. this will center around like people being able to interact with real fossils and high quality casts. And he's trying to raise money for that. And there's a couple ways you could do that. One of them is you can donate to his PayPal at pmraptor98@cox.net. We'll put that in the link.
That'll be in the show notes.
Thank you. He also has 2 self-published books. I want to say they're for children, but they
yes.
yeah.
Or for children at heart.
Yeah.
They're really it's really fascinating. It's about dinosaurs. It's called his first one is Dinosaurs A through Z, Classic Dinosaurs, Volume 1. And you can get that on Amazon it's under his name, Patrick Murphy. And his second one is also under his name, Patrick Murphy, which is Dinosaurs A through Z, Dinosaur Oddities, Volume 2. And he wrote and did the artwork himself for those. So
super cool.
Patrick is a talented bastard, so.
Yes, he is.
Well, hey, definitely go check those things out. And hey, if you want to submit your own stories to Undercooked Analysis to be torn to shreds or grossly
Analyzed.
complimented, you can submit them. You can share them with us at midnightmarinara@gmail.com. That is our email address, and we will read them generally in the order they come in. However, please keep in mind that patrons get first priority when it comes to the stories. We've already had a few submissions, and we got a teeny bit of a backlog going on, which is nice. I want to thank everybody for their submissions so far. Please feel free to send more. We were happy to read them and discuss them on the show. And check out some of the other amazing podcasts here. Special request from our manager. We want more. We want stories in Zach Baggins' POV.
If you guys want to, there's a challenge. I don't think we'll make it a story writing contest, but if you're up for the challenge, write a story in Zach Baggins' point of view.
Speaking of writing challenges, Alan's writing challenge that wrapped up at the end of December. We will be looking at the results of that fairly soon as well. That was an extra challenging one for a lot of people, but we did get a few submissions, so we're going to be analyzing those and giving our final assessment hopefully fairly soon when we can get together and do a proper read and evaluation. We'll have more writing challenges in the future, of course. But hey, if you want to be first in line for a lot of these stories, like I mentioned before, there's the Patreon. We have extras, including the Choice Dregs. And hey, if you just like the podcasts that we do, besides Undercooked Analysis, you can check out the other ones here on the Creative Horror Network. You've got podcasts like Darkly Lit and Trick or Track. You can check out the backlogs of The Witching Hour. Midnight Marinara is there as well. You can have access to that, to the archives there. And, hopefully more shows coming in 2020 if all goes well. We have a few plans for some things. I don't want to say too much yet, but we want the network to continue to grow and be a robust, I like the word robust, a robust place for horror and spooky content in podcasts. That said, I want to thank y'all for joining me for this one, as usual.
Abysmii, Paprika, you guys are awesome.
Thank you. Always have fun on here.
I'm glad. And Sade, thank you for being here and listening in and offering your occasional
As
voice.
a spooky spirit.
The spooky spirit.
Meow. He says.
Thank you. And I guess until next time, don't go to the bog. The bog will come to you with an eviction.
Or do. I mean, it works for some people, apparently.
Yeah, it apparently cures cancer.
Good evening, intrepid listeners. This is the Pasta Shade, the host of Midnight Marinara, and this podcast is part of CreativeHorror.com, a network of podcasts and creators working together to build a constructive community of horror fans. For more content like this, visit us at CreativeHorror.com.